I never meant to listen. The call had ended, or so I thought. I had just finished telling Evan I'd wired the final payment, the one that made their home officially theirs. He said he needed to double-check something with the lender asked me to hold. I did. I always did. The line didn't disconnect. That's how I heard it. First, the sound of laughter, his low and satisfied. Then Lauren's voice, lighter, more amused than I'd ever heard it when speaking to me. "She's too stupid to notice," Evan said, like it was a punchline. "She signed everything, every document I put in front of her. She practically handed it all over." Lauren replied. "It's almost pathetic." The spoon I'd been using to stir my tea clinked against the ceramic. I hadn't realized I'd stopped moving. I was standing in my own kitchen with the scent of lavender from a candle Lauren gave me last Christmas still lingering in the air. Everything in the room looked familiar, but none of it felt like mine anymore. Not the curtains I'd hemmed, not the clock that ticked softly above the stove, not even the tea in my cup. My son's voice carried on bright with arrogance. "Let her keep thinking she's helping. As long as she signs what I need, who cares what she understands?" I didn't speak. I didn't breathe. I just listened. Then slowly, I reached over and ended the call myself. The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. It wrapped around me thick and stifling. The kettle whistled behind me, sharp and impatient, but I didn't turn toward it. My hands moved on their own, resetting the teacup, wiping the spilled drops from the counter with the edge of my sleeve. I stood for a long time not thinking, just existing in the moment after everything changed. Then I whispered, steady and soft, "Not anymore," and I turned to face the file cabinet I hadn't touched since Robert died. After Robert died, the quiet didn't come all at once. It seeped in through the baseboards through the mornings, with one coffee cup instead of two, through the creak of a bed too big for one body. People warned me about the loneliness, but no one told me it would feel like fog, thick, quiet, and slow-moving. I didn't want to admit how much I longed for someone to need me again. Evan knew that. When he and Lauren first mentioned the house, it sounded like a celebration. "It's not just for us," Mom Evan had said, resting his hand over mine at the kitchen table. "It's for the baby. We want him to grow up with roots." Lauren chimed in with a soft smile. "You've already given us so much. But this would change everything." They called it a partnership. They insisted it wasn't charity. I remember nodding my eyes, stinging more from the warmth than the words. I had Robert's life insurance untouched, a savings account we built slowly over the years. I had enough. More than enough. So I co-signed the mortgage. Just a formality, they said. And later, when the refinancing came for nursery renovations, I signed again. Each time I told myself I was building something that would carry my name long after I was gone. There was one afternoon I still remember clearly. Lauren brought over papers for a new account, something about optimizing payments. She'd even highlighted where I needed to sign. I paused the pen in my hand, reading the line twice. My name listed as guarantor. "Is this for the same property?" I asked. Lauren nodded quickly, brushing hair from her face like the question surprised her. "Yes, same one. It just makes processing easier." I signed. I didn't want to be the kind of mother who second-guessed everything. And deep down, I didn't want to admit that I was already uneasy. I kept the documents neatly filed, never read them again. I preferred the illusion that I was still a mother, building something good, something lasting. That night after I heard their laughter on the phone, I sat alone and opened one of those folders. And the name on the document was mine, but the power in it was no longer mine to hold. The tablet sat where I always left it, on the small table by the armchair in the den. I rarely used it for more than grocery lists, library e-books, and the occasional photo Lauren would send of Miles in his Halloween costume or toddling through the yard. It had been Evan who first set up the apps for me. just to keep things simple, Mom. He'd linked everything to the cloud, our joint accounts, the mortgage, the utilities, the investments. Transparency, he called it. You'll always be able to see where everything is. Except I never looked. Until now. I entered the password slowly. The folders were all still there, neatly named. At first, it looked ordinary statements for the mortgage savings summaries, scanned copies of tax filings. But then I saw a folder labeled Davenport Holdings, LLC. I had never heard of it. I opened the file. There it was. My name listed as primary guarantor. The documents were formal, notarized, and thorough. Attached was a loan agreement, $120,000 issued 6 months ago. Evan's signature appeared second, mine first. I didn't remember signing that one. I clicked through more folders. Marled and Finch Ventures, joint brokerage high yield. 3 separate accounts all marked high risk. One focused on cryptocurrency, another in speculative startup shares. Again, my name on the documents, my credit. My stability backing it all. I opened a spreadsheet Lauren had labeled tracking. It wasn't hers. It was a ledger of withdrawals, wire transfers, and fee payments, most routed to Evan's business alias. A quiet horror settled over me, not the kind that screams, but the kind that whispers you've been living in a house of mirrors. My hands trembled, but I didn't panic. Not anymore. I reached for the printer tucked beneath the desk. One by one, I printed every file, every contract, every signature, every transaction. I created a folder on the desktop titled Calderon Record and duplicated each file to a hard drive I kept in a drawer with old tax forms. Willow jumped up onto the desk, curling beside the growing stack of pages. I looked down at her, meeting those green eyes. Good girl, I murmured, scratching behind her ears. I labeled the printed files by category, taped yellow notes to the covers, highlighted figures in red ink. I didn't know yet what everything meant, but I knew what it was built on: my name, my trust, my silence. Each page I turned felt less like betrayal and more like evidence. By the time I stood up, there was no shakiness in my step. I had done what I never thought I'd have to do. I audited my life alone and found out just how far they'd gone without me. The last document I printed was the original power of attorney form, and right below my signature, Evan's handwriting read, "Thanks, Mom. I'll take it from here." The receptionist at Kavanaugh and Roth greeted me by name, just like always. I had been a client since Robert passed, though truthfully, I rarely asked for more than polite overviews and quarterly statements. Mr. Kavanaugh knew me as steady, traditional, low risk. I liked it that way. When he saw me walk in without an appointment briefcase in hand, something flickered behind his glasses. He stood gesturing toward the chair across from him. "Of course, Irene. What can I help you with today?" I sat down, folded my hands on my lap, and looked him in the eye. "I want to review everything tied to my name, every account, every authorization, every line of credit." He blinked. "Of course," he said, slowly adjusting the tablet on his desk. "Is something wrong? I'm not sure yet," I said. "That's why I need your help." We started with the accounts I recognized: retirement funds, Robert's pension, the CD renewals we'd set up together. Then came the ones I didn't. He scrolled carefully, stopping when he saw unfamiliar entities listed under my portfolio. "Davenport Holdings," he asked. "This isn't part of your primary portfolio." "It is now," I said. He frowned deeper as we kept going. "Crypto trades, real estate loans, co-signed business ventures, several of them with my name as the anchor, the steady hand, the foundation. You've given your son power of attorney over several of these," he said quietly. "Did you authorize this much?" I nodded once. I signed. I didn't understand, but I trusted him. Mr. Kavanaugh removed his glasses, set them down carefully. "You've always been cautious. You always asked questions." "I trusted the wrong definition of love," I replied. He didn't press further, just nodded. We can revoke the POA today. I'll flag every joint account, notify the custodians. You'll need an attorney to cleanly extract your liability. Can you recommend someone? I asked. Yes, he said, without hesitation. Leslie Frank. She's discreet. Aggressive when she needs to be. Good, I said, unfolding the list I had brought with me. Then let's get started. We worked silently for another 30 minutes, printing, signing, notarizing. By the time I left, my name was no longer tethered to theirs by blind trust. As I stepped out into the Colorado sun, I pulled my scarf tighter around my neck and walked toward my car with steady feet, dialing the number Mr. Kavanaugh had written on a small square of paper. Evan called 2 days later, all charm and casual warmth, like nothing had shifted between us. Hey, Mom, he said, cheerful and bright. How's everything going over there? You and Willow surviving the cold. I leaned against the kitchen counter watching the snow drift along the edge of the patio. We're doing just fine. There was a pause, the faintest hesitation before his tone softened. Actually, I was hoping we could talk. Something important came up, an opportunity. One of those once-in-a-lifetime kinds. I didn't answer right away. Just waited. It's nothing major, he rushed on. Just some short-term capital I need to secure my position. Super temporary. I wouldn't ask, but since we're already structured as partners on paper, it'd be seamless. How much? I asked. 200, he said quickly. 1,000. But it's covered, totally covered, just a matter of getting it into place fast. I prefer to talk through this in person, I said. Public place. Easier to concentrate. He hesitated. Then, like flipping a switch, said, Sure, yeah, that's perfect. Tomorrow morning, that cafe you like near the park? I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. Perfect. I arrived 20 minutes early and took the seat facing the door. My purse rested open on my lap, the small recorder tucked inside, already running. The soft buzz of conversation and clinking cups created the perfect audio bed. Evan walked in on time, dressed too well for a casual meeting. His coat was designer Lauren's taste, not his. He leaned in to kiss my cheek. You look great, Mom. Thanks, I said lightly, folding my hands on the table. He ordered a coffee, chatted about the baby, Lauren's new volunteer project, how busy things had been lately. It was rehearsed, breezy, polite. Then his hands folded on the table and his voice dropped half a tone. This opportunity, it's real. Solid. We've done the due diligence. The return projection's incredible. He reached into his leather folder and slid a stack of papers toward me, along with a pen. I had everything prepared in case you said yes. Just your signature here. I picked up the top page and scanned it. My name was already typed in guarantor again. Evan watched me closely. You're basically a silent investor at this point. This just formalizes what we've already built together. I nodded, slow and thoughtful. That's a flattering way to put it. Flattering but true, he said, smiling, as if this were a shared joke. You've always believed in me. That means more than you know. I placed the pages back on the table and pressed them into a neat stack. Let me sleep on it, I said gently. I like to be thorough. Of course, he said quickly. Take your time. I picked up my purse and stood steady and warm. We'll talk soon. As I walked out of the cafe into the morning light, I felt the recorder still humming in my bag, every word of his pitch, now mine to keep. It began on a Thursday. I didn't need to be there to witness it. I could picture it clearly enough, Evan and Lauren out at dinner, ordering wine they couldn't afford, smiling across the table, like they had the world tucked safely in their pocket. The waiter returns. Card declined. Evan chuckles, gestures for the second one. Declined again. No shouting. Just the tightening of jaws, the flicker of confusion in Lauren's eyes. The first signal that something beneath their feet had shifted. That same night, a thick envelope lands in their mailbox. Mortgage servicing notice transfer initiated. Property under review. Future balances subject to adjustment. The legal wording is clinical, but the meaning is clear. The structure they thought was permanent is no longer theirs to control. The next morning, their inbox pings with another blow. Revocation of power of attorney. Joint accounts frozen. Legal notice served and filed. Evan calls. I watch the screen light up on the kitchen counter. I don't move. He calls again an hour later. Then a third time after dinner. I let them all go to voicemail. Instead, I open the safe in the study and remove the folder marked Estate. Calderon. Inside my old will. His name appears on every line, every contingency, every fallback. The plan we made after Robert passed. The plan that assumed Evan would do right by what we built. I take the black pen from the desk drawer and slowly, deliberately draw a clean line through every mention of him. Then I slide in the new draft signed 2 days ago, sealed in an envelope marked Final. Executed. Willow hops onto the table and settles beside the safe. I stroke her fur once, then whisper, Almost done. I lock the safe, slide the key back into the drawer, and stand. Tomorrow, I'll meet with Leslie to finalize the trust transfer. And after that, there's only one thing left to do. The knock was sharp, impatient, entitled. I already knew it would be them. I opened the door to find Evan, tight-jawed and tense. Lauren just behind him, arms crossed like she was holding something in. They didn't smile. They didn't pretend. We need to talk, Evan said. Come in, I answered softly. They stepped into the living room and stopped. Leslie Frank was already there, seated calmly with a folder on her lap. She gave them a courteous nod. Evan didn't return it. What is this? Lauren asked. Voice tight. A conversation, I said. One that's long overdue. I motioned toward the table where I had arranged every document, revoked power of attorney, frozen accounts, the updated estate plan, and a timeline of unauthorized transactions. Clean. Labeled. Indisputable. Leslie opened her folder and spoke plainly. All financial access has been rescinded. Reports have been filed citing potential elder financial abuse. You're no longer listed on any estate documents. Evan's face darkened. You're blowing this out of proportion. No, I replied. I'm correcting it. Lauren's voice wavered. We never meant to hurt you. You didn't just lose access, I said evenly. You lost me. Evan stepped forward. You're tearing this family apart. I looked at him without blinking. You did that when you stopped treating me like family and started treating me like an ATM with a heartbeat. Leslie slid a final document across the table. This outlines every unauthorized transaction. It's already with the investigator assigned to your case. They said nothing for a long time. Lauren turned toward the door first. Evan followed slower, his face unreadable. Neither looked back. I closed the door gently behind them and turned the lock. The house settled back into its stillness. Leslie stood, collected her things, and gave me a small nod. You did everything right, she said. I looked down at the final document still resting on the table and with a steady hand tucked it into the folder marked complete. The voicemail came just after noon. I let it play on speaker while I sliced a lemon for tea. Martha, please just call us back. Greg got a notice this morning. His accounts are frozen. They're saying it's related to filings with the state. We don't understand what's happening, but it's serious. Please. We can fix this before it gets worse. We can talk. We're still family. I pressed save and renamed the file Justification Dr. 23. The trail was catching up to them faster than they could rewrite it. Evan's business partners had already begun pulling out. The banks were no longer responding to him, they were responding to my attorney. The paperwork had been clean filed and logged. All it took was one reviewed ledger, one name attached to too many irregular withdrawals, and the trust they used as currency started crumbling. Lauren's voice in the message wasn't angry. It was afraid, not of me, but of what she saw rising in the space where control used to sit. I didn't feel satisfaction, not even a flicker of triumph. What I felt was air, finally light, finally clean. I brewed the tea. No honey this time. I wanted the sharpness. Willow leapt onto the windowsill, curling into herself, with the kind of ease only animals ever truly master. I watched her for a moment, and let the warmth of the mug rest between my palms. They were scrambling now, trying to rearrange the facts, hoping I might slip back into the role they had written for me. The sweet mother, the silent co-signer, the woman who would never raise her voice even when being erased from her own story. But I wasn't that version of myself anymore. I set the tea down beside the notebook I'd kept through every step of this, every document, every date, every call. The margin beside today's entry remained blank. I picked up the pen and wrote one line. "They're starting to feel it." Then I capped the pen, leaned back in my chair, and let the weight of the moment pass through me like breath. Peace wasn't loud. It never had been. It just stayed. Leslie called just before breakfast. "It's done," she said. "All revocations processed. The trust is active, and we've preemptively sealed it against contest. Legally, they have no path back." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Thank you." She paused, then added, "Most people wait until death to protect their legacy. You did it while standing." After we hung up, I stepped into the garden. The air was cold, but not cruel. For the first time in a long time, I felt something like solidity under my feet. No tug, no shadow. The story leaked a few days later. Someone in Evan's office must have whispered to the wrong person. The mention was brief, buried in a column about financial misconduct and pending investigation into unauthorized use of elder resources. No names were listed, but people knew. Lauren's family stopped calling. Their Christmas card never arrived. Evan's clients withdrew one by one. His name was no longer associated with growth or ambition. It was now tied to silence, suspicion, and distance. He didn't call again. I didn't speak to any reporters. A woman from a local business journal reached out once wanting my side. I deleted the message without replying. There was nothing to explain. What they had taken wasn't money. It was voice. Choice. The quiet erasure of my role in my own life. And I had taken that back, piece by piece, signature by signature. Not out of vengeance, but clarity. The past was theirs to spin. The future was mine to write. I updated the binder on my desk, sliding in the final document behind a new tab labeled Protected. Then I closed the cover and ran my hand gently along its spine. This time, the story would be told in my name. I stood on the porch of my new home, the air crisp against my skin, the silence entirely my own. No names on the deed but mine. No signatures but mine. The porch light glowed behind me, not a signal, not an invitation, just light. Willow curled near the window, her tail flicking lazily as I stepped back inside. I closed the door without looking back, turned the lock with steady hands, and let the stillness settle around me. This house didn't wait for anyone anymore. It simply stood, and so did I.